Okay, now before we wrap up day one of JungleCon, please welcome to the stage Lenny Smith. He's an Amazon expert and seller himself who's launched multiple products. He's here live to answer any questions you've submitted throughout the day, as well as any questions you submit right now. So please go ahead and drop your questions in the comment section down below, and we'll do our very best to answer each and every one of them. So let's get started.
3, 2, 1.
Here we go! Hello everybody, welcome to this live AMA session for JungleCon. Happy JungleCon Day. I hope everyone is enjoying this as much as I am. Thank you to all the guests so far. If you've enjoyed the content in the session so far today, make sure to give us a big thumbs up down below to let us know. Now, this is a live AMA session. I'm here live, so drop your comments into the chat box. I can see them here, and I'm gonna spend this session answering any questions that you might have. So whether you're just starting out and you're looking to start this business and you're looking to find a product, whether you're looking to source it, I know that I hope you enjoyed my session earlier on product research, sourcing, and all the great sessions that have come since. So again, make sure to drop your comments on questions in the chat box below. And without further ado, let's kick things off. All right, so the first question here is from Jink Project, who says, hey Lenny, Tatiana mentioned that it's generally bad to focus more than one product at a time. I'm new to this and I'm starting with 2 products I find interesting. Is this bad? Let me try to break it down for you. A lot of the time, things aren't necessarily just bad or good. There are pros and cons. An obvious pro of if you can launch 2 products at once is, double the revenue stream and double the sales, etc., etc. But whether or not it's a good idea for you to do that when you're just starting out really depends on a lot of factors. Short answer is I would tend to agree with Tatiana that it's better, particularly if you're a beginner, just to start out with 1 product, because no matter how much you watch our content, other people's content, you go through a course, you inevitably learn so much that very first time round. You make little mistakes and you always come away from your first product thinking like, oh man, next time I'm gonna kill it. Like next time I know exactly what to do. So do you want to do that with 2 products? I feel like that places a lot more pressure on yourself on something that already is, inherently quite a learning curve. So it's not to say that you can't launch 2 products, but I would personally suggest just launching 1, as you're gonna learn a lot more or learn a lot from that process, and you'll be able to apply that and probably do even better with your second product. But if you have any more specific follow-up questions, then please let me know. Thank you everyone. I'm seeing the questions coming in. Next one here, will you be running promotions through influencers for the washable pee pads? That is a great suggestion, and that is definitely something that I've thought about. At the moment, if you tuned into the AMA that I held last week and the final episode, the next things that I wanna focus on are really optimizing the listing and PPC. There are a number of new images that I want to add. There's some that I've taken that I want to edit and add in. And in fact, we also got some professional photos done from productphotography.com, and those actually came in, I think it was yesterday or the day before that those just came in. So we've got a whole bunch of new images. We wanna add A+ content because currently it doesn't have that. We wanna make some videos. Then we want to optimize our PPC campaigns further. So there's a lot of things that I wanna do on Amazon first, and I'm a firm believer that you should exhaust everything you can possibly do on Amazon's platform first before you go and focus on external methods. Because generally speaking, you're gonna get a lot more sort of bang for your buck on Amazon because people are already there and they're there to shop. So once I've done all those things, then yes, influencer marketing is something that I'm interested in. Social media marketing as well. I really enjoyed Joshua Crisp's session earlier, so I definitely want to try out some of those things. So long story short, yes, I do want to try that, but not quite yet. And another quick shout out, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see updates on the $1 Million Case Study, probably in maybe 6 to 8 weeks time from now. Once I've had a chance to implement some of these strategies, I definitely want to do a follow-up episode and share where the product is at down the track. All right. Let's see. Thanks for all the great questions. Okay. Rob says, when will the downstream PPC tool come to Jungle Scout? That's a great question, one that we've had for quite a while. Currently, downstream is a separate application. We are hoping to integrate that more with Jungle Scout in the future, but we don't have any set timeframes as of yet. But definitely you can enjoy all the functionality of downstream at the moment. Just head over to downstreamimpact.com. Okay, FBA Phil says, I want to launch with quite a high budget. Would you recommend going for a higher priced product or higher volume per month? Great question. There's pros and cons to each of those. Typically you would be, for a higher volume product, there would usually be like a lower price product, maybe like a $20 product that you can sell 10, 20 units plus per day. Or if you go for a really high price product, maybe it's $50, $70, it might only do 5, 10 sales per day. And you end up with kind of perhaps a similar revenue, but just less sales if it's a higher priced product. I do like higher priced products because there's generally less competition. Because instead of paying maybe $3 to $5 per unit for a $20 item, you might have to pay $15, $20, $30 in order to get that higher priced product, which means you just ultimately need a lot more capital up front. Instead of maybe $3,000, $4,000, you might need like $8,000, $10,000 to get started. So there's less people that just have that much to start out with, and therefore there's less competition in that space. And the profit margins tend to be larger there. So if you can afford the capital, then I think it's a good place to sell. Personally, I like having a combination of some higher priced products, but also some lower priced ones as well. I think it just helps overall with cash flow. You need a lot more money to order these higher priced products. So having some cheaper products that you can, also order in with less money up front, I think helps with cash flow. So that would be my suggestion, is ultimately have a mixture of both. If you're just starting out, it's your very first product, again, for the same reason I mentioned earlier, I would say it might be better to start with a lower priced product while you kind of learn the game. Because higher priced products, again, because you're spending more, there's just inherently more risk there. So yeah, those are my thoughts. Hopefully that helps you out. Okay. Nebby says, please, I'm just starting up and finding it difficult to grasp the knowledge regarding Amazon ranking and keywords. Can you summarily let me know how you can get your product best ranked on Amazon? Yeah, that's a great question. Well, first up, I'd say if you didn't watch it, make sure to go back and watch session 3 with Stephen Pope. That was a great one on listing optimization and SEO, and you can view the replay here on YouTube. If I was to kind of give you a very simple summary, I would say you need to identify the keywords that are most relevant for your product. You can use a tool like Jungle Scout's Keyword Scout. And a couple of simple ways to do this, you either type in the name of your product, so using my product, washable pee pads, or you could put in a competitor's product, and it will tell you the most relevant related keywords to that keyword that you put in or that competitor's product. Now you've got a list of keywords that are relevant to your product. You essentially have two things that you can do with them, or two main things. You want to take those keywords and include them in your listing. And you also want to put them into Amazon advertising campaigns or PPC campaigns and basically advertise your product on those keywords. If you do those two things with these highly relevant keywords, then as you start to get sales, that tells Amazon that your product is relevant for washable pee pads or dog mats or dog feeding mats. And as you start to get more sales, then you start to rank higher organically on those different keywords, which just means people will also start to find you naturally, organically, and you won't have to pay for those sales. Though, yeah, hopefully that's a simple summary of what listing, optimization and ranking is and how you can get started. But if you need me to clarify anything, then please let me know. All right, Hazel says, Joshua Crisp spoke about having a social media handle. Please explain more in depth. Yeah, so I really loved that tip, and it's something that I'm going to implement. Definitely take his call to action. If you've got a brand registered on Amazon, go out and register all your social media handles. So what he's referring to is just overall increasing the value of your company and your brand. Because if you one day want to sell your brand, so I'll use an example. Here, we registered Jungle Creations as our brand. That's what we're selling the washable pee pads under, and future products will likely be sold under that brand. If we one day want to sell Jungle Creations as a brand, let's say we've got 5, 10 products underneath, there are other digital assets that will increase the value of Jungle Creations. So if we own the domain website, junglecreations.com, if we have Jungle Creations on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube, these are what you call digital assets, and it inherently means that we can sell Jungle Creations for more money because we own all of the different related properties. So even if you don't plan on selling your business at this stage, if you don't plan on posting any content, it's not about having to do any of that right now. It's just about registering the account so that you own it, because if someone else registers that, then essentially, you don't own it and you can't sell that as part of your brand down the track. So it's just thinking long-term about like, how can I increase the value of my brand overall? You may never sell, but if you do, you're gonna be happy that you own all of the social media handles and these digital assets. Hopefully that explains your question. All right, Amy with Amu asks, hi Lenny, brand new seller here. I'm wondering if it's essential to start the journey with building an LLC, applying for a trademark, and then eventually Amazon brand registry. That's a great question, and I'd highly recommend you check out a session number 10 tomorrow, the essentials of getting started with your business. We've got a couple of great guests on there that speak to brand registry, trademarks, all of this stuff. But if I give you a really quick answer, I'd say you don't have to start out with a trademark and brand registry to start selling. However, I would say that it is important, and I would highly recommend doing it as soon as possible. If you can do that up front, then I would recommend it. The main thing that would hold you back from doing it up front is the cost of a trademark. You need to have a trademark in order to get brand registry. So this will typically be an additional $600, $800, something like that. So if you can afford that up front, I would definitely do it. If you can't, then it's fine. You don't have to have that immediately. So in my example with the washable pee pads, I did actually have brand registry when we launched the product, but I didn't have what's called A+ content, where you see all the nice images and text below your listing. That's one of the main advantages of having brand registry, is to have all that beautiful imagery and text. When I launched the product, I didn't actually have any of that in place because I was just trying to launch as quickly as possible and didn't have time to build that out. So I, in essence, launched without the benefits of brand registry, or one of the main benefits. So it's totally possible and fine to launch without it, but you'll definitely, I am very confident that when you get brand registry and you can add A+ content, then it's gonna help your listing a lot. And there's a whole bunch of other benefits for brand registry, but you'll learn more about that in tomorrow's session. So yes, get brand registry. Don't need it straight away, but get it as soon as possible. Okay, Rosita says, what would you recommend to new starters about reviews? How to get them as soon as possible? Thank you. So really, you need to get lots of sales is probably like the short answer, because at the end of the day, you can't get reviews without people having purchased it first. And so I see it as a game of numbers. The more sales you get, inherently, the more reviews you'll get. Only a small percentage of those sales will leave reviews, but again, the more you increase the sales, the more likelihood and the more chances of reviews that you'll get. So, you know, strategies for getting more sales. I would recommend going back and watching the $1 Million Case Study, because I do talk about how we launched that product. And in the end, one of the significant things that helped with that was PPC, lowered the price of the product because it didn't have any reviews to begin with, and then spent a lot of money on advertising to kind of boost those sales initially. And then as of today, we've now got 24 reviews or ratings, which is really great. And to give you a reference, I was just looking at the sales just before. I think we've had about 450 sales in total. And then, yeah, we've had about, let's say 25 reviews. So you do the math. I think we've got like a pretty decent number of reviews. You might get less or more, but that's just to give you an idea. So getting lots of sales. Now, once you've got those sales rolling in, I'd highly recommend, if you're a Jungle Scout member, we've got this feature called Review Automation. All you do is make sure your Sell Essential account is synced to Jungle Scout. You just literally toggle this button on, and then for each of your orders, we'll automatically send out a review request. Now, this is functionality that is built into Sell Essential. This is something that Amazon already has. And all Jungle Scout is doing is just automating the process. So normally, if you didn't have Jungle Scout, you have to go in, click on every order, and click on Request a Review. And that sends a request to that customer, whereas Jungle Scout can automate the process for you, so you never have to click any buttons, which is really nice. So you can do it without Jungle Scout, but it's easier with it. So I highly recommend Request a Review. Then there's the Vine program, which is one of the benefits of brand registry. You can offer up to 30 units of your product to Vine reviewers. These are essentially the top reviewers on Amazon, and they generally, there's a very high rate of them leaving reviews. I think it's like over 90% or something like that. Most of them will leave reviews, and they're usually very detailed, and they often include photos. So really high quality reviews. You can, enroll into that program, offer up to 30 units of your product, and then as they're claimed by Vine reviewers, you've got a good chance of receiving reviews. I would do that straight away. I would turn on review automation straight away. And then, I consider lowering your price in order to make it more, a better incentive for people to buy, because you don't have many reviews, or you don't have any reviews at that point. And then you can also turn on PPC, which gives you the exposure to prospective customers. And that in a nutshell was how I launched the washable pee pads, and so far has worked really well and kind of got us these first 24 reviews. Hopefully I didn't go through that too quickly. I want to make sure I get to a lot of questions here, and we do have more detailed videos on each of these processes. So I'm trying to keep it high level and trying to get through as much of this as I can. All right, Batul asks, is there an estimated time between one product and another? Yeah, this is a good question. So once you've launched one product, how long do you wait until you launch the second? I believe that's what you're saying. And shout out to Tatiana. I believe that was like one of the mistakes that she mentioned, is like launching products too soon. And I can attest to that the second product I launched too soon because I was very excited about the first one, and I'm like, oh, I want to launch the second. And what I ended up doing wrong was I launched the second one kind of forgetting that, you know, how much extra money and time is required to launch it well. And then, you know, the second product was taking a little bit of time to get off the ground, and then I sort of ran out of money to reorder my first product, and yeah, then I sort of ended up with two struggling products because the first one ran out of stock and the second one still needed a bit more time to grow. So what is the estimated time? I don't think there is a specific time frame because all products will kind of grow differently, and it depends how much profit you have left over. I think only you can answer that, but really it just comes down to making sure that you've got enough revenue and profit to be able to continue reordering your first product and be able to put aside another $2,000, $3,000, whatever the case may be, that you can just sort of put aside in order to order the second product. So you need to be able to take that money aside and still have enough to continue ordering and not run out of your first product. That's the overly simple answer. But yeah, unfortunately, I don't think there's a specific time frame. Okay, does request a review also apply in Canada? Good question. I don't know offhand. I think so, but I'm sure someone from Jungle Scout can drop that in the comments below and help me out. Okay, let's see. Amelie says, what would you add on a card insert to be able to collect customer emails? Yeah, that's a good question. I personally have just recently stopped using insert cards, or more so just in the last couple of products I've launched, I just haven't bothered to add them. Once upon a time, they were definitely more popular because it was harder to get reviews. I feel like the strategies that I mentioned earlier are better for getting reviews anyway, and you definitely can't outright ask for reviews, or it's just, yeah, very much a gray area. You have to be very careful what you write on insert cards in order to, yeah, make sure you're not going against Amazon's TOS. So I have talked to sellers that still use them, and they're just very, very, what do you call it, broad with their language. Or, you know, I think like Joshua Crisp outlined a strategy where you're just sharing, you've got a call to action for people to learn more, to get more information, to supplement the product that they've bought. So you could try that. But personally, I'm a little bit hesitant about card inserts because the way I see it is I'm not sure how effective they really are anyway. So for me, I'm just kind of hesitant to include them just because I don't know that they're that effective anyway, and so I'm not sure if it's worth the risk, but other people might have different opinions and still might have a lot of success. Yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on insert cards. Okay. What to do if your competitors leave negative reviews? This is always a tough one. You know, particularly when you're just starting out in that early stage, getting a 1-star review can be really damaging to your listing. It can be hard to come back from. If it's not verified, I believe you can call up Seller Central and ask them to remove it. I've talked to a few people that have attempted that, all with varying degrees of success. For instance, if it's a rating rather than an actual written review, it's harder to have a case against, to say that it's, not legit. If there's a review, you can, and the review is nothing to do with the product itself. Maybe it's saying that like, oh, this, 1 star, this product came in came in late or something like that. If that's the case and you're using FBA, then because it's not an issue with the product and it's maybe more on Amazon's end, then you might have more of a case for getting Amazon to review it. But yeah, essentially the only thing you can do is ask Amazon to remove it. And in some cases they will, in other cases it might be harder to get them to budge on it. So that's really, I think, the only thing that you can do that I'm aware of. All right, Jing Project says, any secrets about upcoming features for Jungle Scout? Nothing that I can share right now. Probably the biggest one, well, it's not really a secret, but JungleCon's been the biggest thing on our map for a little while now. But we're always improving our products and always working on new ones. So definitely make sure to subscribe and we'll keep you updated, but nothing that I can share on today's live stream. All right, Alessandro says, how does the cash flow work, especially when you're starting with a not very high budget? Cash flow is one of the trickiest things to manage with an Amazon business. The reason being is that you get paid out every 2 weeks. So you make a sale today, tomorrow, the day after, you're not gonna get paid out that money for a couple of weeks, and then it might take a couple of days to arrive in your bank and so on. And that makes it tricky when you need to place an order today or tomorrow and making sure that you stay in stock. That's why starting with a low amount of capital up front is really tricky. There are definitely people that can do it for under $2,000, and in the past I've heard of people doing it for like $500, and so those cases do exist. And I don't want to say that it's impossible, but what I'd say it's a slower start, because most likely if you're starting out with $500, $1,000, you're probably going to run out of stock before you have received enough money back in your pocket in order to place a new order. You'll likely need to sell out of all of your first order completely in order to maybe have enough to place a reorder. You might even need to add a little bit more on in order to get that second shipment in. That's whereas if you've got $3,000, $4,000, you've got a healthy amount, that means you can buy more stock up front, which essentially means you'll be able to cover that second shipment. A rule of thumb that Greg shared in the past and that I quite like is aim to buy about 3 months worth of inventory up front. If you can do that, then let's say you've got maybe 4 to 6 weeks worth of selling, and then, or actually let's say you sell your product for about a month, then you've still got 2 months left. Then let's say it takes maybe 45 days to 60 days to place a new order, and for that shipment to come in, that means you've still got that extra 2 months up your sleeve in order to place the order and receive the order without running out. So that's kind of like a rule of thumb there. And yeah, cash flow is very tricky at the start, which is why it's good to start out with as much as possible. If you just have a small budget, then you might just have to accept that you're more than likely going to run out of stock. And there might be a little bit of a gap between the first order and the next one. And that's okay. Like, it's obviously a bummer to run out of stock, but it's not the end of the world. That's actually what happened with the washable pee pads. Our first order of 500 units essentially ran out of stock because they sold out fairly quickly, and just waiting on a new order now. So it's not selling at the moment, but I'm confident that we'll get it back up and running pretty soon. Hopefully that helps you out. Okay, MBS Technology Solutions says, Catalina here. Hi, Catalina. I usually only buy Amazon Prime products. What is required to be an Amazon Prime seller? One of the easiest ways to become an Amazon Prime seller is to use Amazon's FBA program. So when you create a listing on Amazon, you've got the option of fulfilled by Amazon or fulfilled by merchant. Fulfilled by merchant means you do all the packaging and sending yourself, or you choose FBA and Amazon does all that for you. You just send all of your inventory into their warehouses. That's the preferred method that we have, just because it's very hands-off. You don't have to touch the product. You send it into Amazon and then they deal with all the logistics. So quite simply, just set your listing up as an FBA listing. That's open for anyone to do. There are ways that you can be fulfilled by a merchant and then still get the Amazon Prime badge on your listing. I don't want to go into too much detail because I think it's a fairly niche option. I think most people would just typically go with FBA. So it can be done another way, but the easiest way to have a Prime badge is FBA. Great. Let's see. Back to the previous question, what's the best way to avoid running out of stock? I guess like order more inventory up front, but also good inventory management. So Jungle Scout has a tool called Inventory Manager, which is really great at basically telling you when you need to reorder and how many units you need to reorder. So you put in a couple of details. You put in how long it takes, or you put in your lead time. That's how long it takes from the day you order to make the product, get it shipped over, and then into Amazon's warehouse. So typically that might be, let's say, 60 days. So Jungle Scout needs to know that. And then you also tell Jungle Scout how long do you want to be in stock for? And a good rule of thumb would be the lead time plus 1 month. So you might say 90 days. It's like it takes 60 days to get the product here. So I want to send in 90 days worth of inventory, which means I'm going to be able to sell for 1 month before I need to then order another shipment, okay, in order to not run out of inventory. And so you put in those two details, and then Jungle Scout will look at your past sales history, the last 15 days, 30 days or longer, and it'll see how many sales are you doing per day. It might be seeing you're doing 15 sales per day. So it will tell you if you're going to continue doing 15 sales per day, then like you need to order by next Tuesday in order to stay in stock. So you can figure all this out yourself, but using an inventory management tool like Jungle Scouts just makes it really easy. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay. Oh, and then follow-up question, what's the best way to get rid of slow selling inventory? Generally, I find just lowering the price or adding a coupon. Adding a coupon's a really great way to do it because you can offer a discount and then the little coupon icon appears in the search results, which tends to, people love getting a deal, so they love seeing that and purchasing it with a discount. So that's typically what I would do. I would calculate what's called like your kind of break-even cost. So if typically you sell at $30 and your expenses are $20, it costs you $20 in Amazon fees and product fees, then $20 is kind of your break-even point. That means that you could lower your price from $30 down to about $20 and you'll break even. You won't necessarily lose money. So that would be my goal, is to, if you're trying to sell out of slow selling inventory, reduce it as low as your kind of break-even price, so that you don't make money, but you don't lose money. In some cases, you might need to lower it even further. So you might have to put up with losing a couple of dollars per product, but that might be the only way that you can get rid of this slow-selling inventory. And what else? Once you've lowered your price, you might want to have a small PPC budget just to help that inventory get in front of your customers so that they can actually see it and have the opportunity to buy it. Cassandra says, how much should my profit be per product? Good question. So because it will differ, if you're selling a $100 product, then you would typically want a higher dollar amount than if you're selling a $20 product. So I'll speak to it in terms of profit margin. And typically I'd recommend at least 25 to 30%. If you can get 30% or higher, that's like a really nice, healthy profit margin. So once you take away all the expenses, you're making 25% more, or 25 to 30% more. So that's a good rule of thumb. The other way that you can look at it is return on, your return on investment. So that a good rule of thumb is 100% ROI, meaning that if it costs you $6 out of pocket to make this product, then you would want to get at least another $6 back on top of that. So you would want to be getting $12 back. Sometimes if it's a higher price product, you might only get 70, 80% ROI, but you might be okay with that because the actual dollar amount might be quite healthy. It might be like $20 or something, $10, $20, which is a healthy dollar amount, but it doesn't quite hit 100% ROI. But hopefully those two rules of thumb give you at least a bit of an idea. All right, Brian says, any strategy to help improve ranking after being out of stock for a few weeks? Just choose a few long tail keywords that you want to target for PPC with mid-range search volume and increase the bid. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great way to go about it. And I think it really just comes back to a few of the strategies that I've mentioned earlier: lowering your price, using PPC, using coupons to reduce your price and make it more attractive. That's really the best way to move slow selling inventory to launch a new product, or if you've been out of stock for a little while, then to get in front of new eyeballs. You don't want to be running at a low price for too long or all the time, but it's a nice way, maybe for a couple of days, just to kickstart your listing, just get some sales happening. That will help bump up your organic ranking again, and then you can start putting your price back up to whatever your intended price is. All right. Steve says, what is the best way to fight hijacking? We have toy items that suddenly were delisted because Amazon said they were identifiable as a forbidden mushroom, which is not true. Let's see. The best way to fight hijacking, I'm going to talk about it in terms of counterfeit products, because some people refer to hijacking as just anyone else selling on your listing, which isn't necessarily against terms and conditions. Amazon has actually set it up that way that there can be one listing for a product and multiple sellers are allowed to sell that product. What isn't allowed is to sell counterfeit versions of that product. So if there's someone that has selling on your listing with a product that is not yours, that is counterfeit, then that's obviously a negative thing, because anyone buying that product is not going to be getting the genuine article. They might leave bad reviews as a result, and they're stealing your sales for something that's not yours, etc., etc. In the past, what you would typically have to do is buy one of those products that's being counterfeited and then send in photos to Amazon, and I think they'll ask for a few other bits of information to kind of prove that, like, okay, this is the counterfeit one, this is what it's the genuine product, and yeah, I think a few other bits of information, and you have to go back and forth with this case with Amazon, which is a little bit painful, but it's what you have to do. Now, one of the features of brand registry is, I think it's called their transparency program, but essentially, I'm not super experienced with it, but if you have brand registry, you use this program, it essentially makes it easier for you to protect your product. You've got like your own dashboard to report counterfeit products, and Amazon can, you get extra assistance in sorting that out. Again, it's not something that I've actually used myself yet, but that's one of the features of brand registry. So that's, another reason why I'd recommend getting brand registry. It definitely helps you protect your products. Okay, Catalina again, how do the returns work? Do you pay shipping every time a customer returns a product? I actually don't know offhand. I think you do. I think you end up wearing a little bit of the cost every time there's a return. To be honest, I just don't pay too much attention to it. You know, for me, it sort of, it happens, and it all sort of happens automated in the background. If there's a lot of returns happening, then I kind of take a look and try to address, like, okay, is there a problem with the product and so on? But you know, everyone will experience a certain number of returns. So yeah, honestly, I haven't looked at it too much, but I think my understanding is that when there are returns, you unfortunately do lose, I don't know, maybe it's like a couple of dollars or something per order. I think you do need to foot the bill for the return, but don't quote me on that. I don't know for sure. Someone else in the chat might be able to answer you, but that's just my understanding. Alex says, what advice do you have here for private labeling with $1,000 budget? Oh, that's a tricky one. I know, again, I've spoken to this earlier, so if you missed the earlier questions, then make sure to go back and watch the replay after this. But as I mentioned before, it's gonna be slower starting out with $1,000 budget. It can be done. You're most likely gonna run out of your first product, and you might have to save up a little bit extra money to help buy that second order, but at least you've validated that the product does sell. That's one good thing about selling or starting out with a smaller budget, is you can just more quickly validate whether a product is gonna sell or not, okay, without having put up, you know, $5,000 to learn that lesson. So that's like one of the benefits. Otherwise, I would say finding a really cheap product is gonna be even more of a priority for you. Trying to find something that's only costs a couple of dollars, $2 or $3 to make would be ideal, or less. It's becoming harder and harder to find those products that only cost like a few dollars but still makes a healthy amount on Amazon. When I say that, I wouldn't recommend selling a product that is priced underneath $10, not even under $15 really. I think $15 should be the bare minimum that you sell a product for. Anything less than that, the profit margins tend to get very, very slim. So I wouldn't recommend, I don't know, like iPhone cases or something, which you can get, I don't know, maybe like 30 cents or something, but then they sell for $6, $7, $8 on Amazon. I wouldn't recommend something like that. But yeah, find something super, super cheap, but aim to be still selling it for at least $15. Or just be prepared to run out of stock in the first order and then save up a little bit more for the next one. And yeah, just accept that it's going to be a slower process. Hopefully that helps. Dom says, how do you know when to throw in the towel on a product? That's a good question. It can be really hard to tell. I know that with my first product, it was an electronics product. And so the costs of the raw goods ended up kind of increasing over time. And then I had the final straw for me was I had a batch that I suddenly started getting all these negative reviews. It wasn't working, and it just was a bit of a nightmare. And there was issues with customs and things. And in hindsight, I think I persevered with that product for too long. One of the signs, or one of the things that made me realize I needed to stop selling this particular product, was the profit margins were getting slimmer and slimmer. It was maybe like, it eventually came down to like $2 profit per unit, and it was just gonna take way too long to grow. So I would say if the net result of everything you're doing is that you have you're getting a very low profit margin consistently for like a couple of months or something like that, then it might be time to throw in the towel. Yeah, I'm trying to think of anything specific. I feel like saying like you'll just know, but that's a kind of a terrible answer. Yeah, so I guess if you're consistently struggling to get sales, your no matter how much you work on your PPC campaigns, you can't get your ACOS under 100%, and that's always really high. then yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think of something actionable here. What I say to people starting out launching a product is you do need to be prepared to lose money up front, but instead of losing money, I prefer to see it as a marketing budget. So maybe what you could do is ask yourself, how much am I willing to spend on this advertising marketing budget? How much am I willing to spend there before I decide to move on? Let's say $2,000, $3,000. Then yeah, maybe you could take that approach where you're willing, like, okay, I understand that I don't have any reviews now, so I'm selling at $1 loss per unit, but I'm okay with that because I'm getting sales, I am slowly getting reviews, which I know and understand is gonna help my listing get sales organically in the future. That's just part of the process, but maybe have a cap on it where it's like maybe $2,000, $3,000, something like that. Maybe when you hit that cap, if you're not profitable by that point and you haven't been able to start getting organic sales, 5, 10 sales a day, you know, with, you know, a reasonable amount of profit, 25% profit or more, then maybe, yeah, you have a date in mind that you then perhaps pull the plug. That's probably how I would go about it, just thinking about it now, but I don't think I've got anything more specific for you. All right. Richard says, I think it was Joshua Crisp that other points of contact of social media own the website, etc. on the packaging. Was he talking about only using a scanned code of actually listing each one individual? Sorry, I'm not quite sure what you're referring to. I think Joshua Crisp was like, might have been referring to having your social media handles and your website on the actual product packaging, which would be each individual unit. But if that's not what your question is, then please clarify for me and I'll do my best to answer. Okay, let's see. How do you... next question is, how do you include a small bonus product to stand out from the competition and encourage a purchase? So just one good strategy in general is called bundling. This is where you take a related item to your product and sell it with your product in order to increase its value and stand out from all of the competition. So that might be, sometimes it could be as simple as everyone else is selling a 1-pack, maybe you sell a 2-pack, or everyone else is selling a keyboard, whereas you might sell a keyboard and mouse, something like that. So you find related products that people typically buy with it. A good way to do that is to open up a lot of those listings, and there's a section there that is called frequently bought with. And so you can actually see what other customers are buying with that product. And that's a gold mine of information. So I would open up all, 15, 20, maybe the whole first page of listings and see what is being frequently bought with that particular product. That's usually a good indicator that you could bundle that product with the one that you're looking to sell. And that's a great way to stand out from the competition, is by bundling a product like that. It also means that you can raise up the price of your product, which, as I mentioned earlier, the higher the price, the better. And typically that means more profit margin as well. How do you include a small bonus product to stand out from competition and encourage a purchase? Yeah, I think I've answered that, but you might also be referring to just, I see people in their listing, they'll say, actually this might kind of go back to what Joshua Crisp was talking about when, in terms of like adding value. I think what he mentions is like you can add an insert card, or maybe on your packaging, people can go to your website or social media in order to get, if you're selling a yoga mat, it's like maybe go to this URL and you'll get some free yoga classes to help you get started on your mat, or a getting started guide for how to set up your yoga mat, or whatever the case may be. So things like that, I've seen people include that information on their listing, or that might be something that is included on your product packaging or in an insert card. And when it comes to an insert card, again, you what Amazon doesn't want you to be doing is sending people somewhere else to buy a product. But if you're adding value to the one that they've purchased, then that is okay from my understanding. So hopefully that helps you out. And if you guys are enjoying this Ask Me Anything, then let me know by hitting the thumbs up down below. I hope you guys are getting a lot of value from this. All right, Cassandra says, can other sellers copy the bundling? Yes, they can. So when you're wanting to stand out from the competition, there are varying levels of what you can do. The one that's probably one of the more defensible ways is to make changes to the actual product itself. So if you're wanting to sell a water bottle, you might make changes. Everyone is selling the same water bottle, but you might make yours longer, or you might have a second lid, or you might have a cap, or whatever the case may be. You actually get the manufacturer to physically change and make your own version of that product. That's a lot harder for someone else to duplicate. If it's a very unique design, you can patent that design, which makes it very hard for anyone else to copy. Or a simpler thing to do would be to ask your supplier to sign an agreement that that the design is exclusively yours. Whether or not that would really hold up in court, or like whether you could really enforce that, is perhaps unlikely, but it's a nice thing to have in place. Then below that is something like bundling, which is like easier to do, but isn't as defensible as changing the product itself. So again, varying levels of what you can do to be defensible against other people copying. But certainly other people can copy your bundling. One of the things that I've done in the past is I've bundled products from different suppliers. And so I had one supplier send this little add-on item to supplier A. Supplier A bundled it all together, packaged it, and then sent it into Amazon. That's another thing you can do that no one else ended up copying me, and that made my product stand out. Just because it's more work, more effort, more moving parts, etc. for someone else to copy. So think of it this way, the more effort it is for you to make the changes, then the less likely someone else is going to copy it. Most people want to take the path of least resistance and find an easy way to knock off a product. That's why if you're selling the same product as everyone else, then other people can come and see like, oh, everyone's just selling a plain water bottle, and it's just very easy for them to do. So yeah, the more steps you can add in there, the better. All right, how to check the viability of FBA private label product. Simple answer is use Jungle Scout. We've got a lot of content on our YouTube channel, also within Jungle Scout, that kind of teaches you what to look for in a winning product. Definitely check out my session from earlier today on product research and sourcing and some of the things that the top attributes that you want to look for. But yeah, certainly check out our YouTube channel here. We've got a lot of content on what makes up a winning product. Okay, next question is, how can I try out Jungle Scout keyword search tool? Just head over to junglescout.com, and that's where you can find out all about Keyword Scout and try it out. MBS Technology says, or asks, when you improve a product and customize it, do you recommend to get a design patent, and how much does it cost? I've never done this, so I don't know how much it would cost. I think it would be fairly expensive. And I would just say it's probably not too common for people to do this, not unless they've got a lot of money behind them. I wouldn't recommend the typical person that's just starting their own, small business to do this. Again, it's the most defensible thing, but it's the, I guess, like most time-consuming, expensive, complicated process. I think there's lots of other things that you can do that makes it harder for other people to copy, that is a lot less work than getting a design patent. Again, if you do have a very unique design that no one else has got, then maybe you do want to patent it. But for most people, I'd say that you probably don't want to go to that much effort. Okay, because these are all sort of related. Alexis asks, any comments on mold ownership agreements and contracts? Yeah, again, when you customize a product, typically the supplier will need to create a brand new mold, and that would typically cost you money up front. It might be $1,000, $2,000 for them to make a particular mold. For instance, using the water bottle example, your supplier has all the machinery and the molds to make this exact water bottle. Now, if you're saying I want it 2 feet high or something, they're gonna have to create a whole brand new mold, and it's not cost effective for them to do it just for you. And particularly if you're only, depending on how many units you're ordering. So normally they will put that charge on you. So you might have to, again, pay $1,000, $2,000 to create that mold up front. And that's why it's a good option to help, I would rather do something like that than a design patent, as again, it's something that's harder for anyone else to copy. Now, if you do that, I would definitely put a contract and agreement in place with your supplier that mold is exclusively yours, that they can't use that mold for any other clients of theirs. In terms of, this again holding up in court, if they were to violate that, is it's tricky to know. It would probably cost you more than it's worth if you did want to take it to court if they violated that. But generally, from a lot of people I've talked to, just putting these agreements in place is usually enough to kind of hold the supplier to their word. But again, it may not be like a concrete thing that you can completely fall back on. So I guess keep that in mind. That's been my experience. Okay, next question is, how much does PPC cost? I can't remember now if there's like a minimum amount per day that you can, I can't remember if you can spend like $1 a day or $5 a day or something like that, but you can start from a very small amount, one of those kind of numbers. Yeah, so you can get started for just very, very little and then start to scale your way up from there. All right, we've got a couple minutes left. I'm gonna answer a couple more questions before we wrap up today. Let's see. Amelie says, when a product is under production, at which point should we create the listing? Good question. I would typically create the listing when the product is in production. The good thing about that is it will typically take 30 days, maybe 40 days or so for the product to be created, which then gives you a lot of time to do things like creating your listing, maybe working on your custom packaging, that sort of thing. That's typically when I would do it. If you have time beforehand, then sure. But usually my efforts are going into product research and sourcing and getting samples, reviewing them, going backwards and forwards with the supplier, really nailing down the product that you want, and then finally making a decision on placing the order. At that point, yeah, I would definitely start creating the listing, set up your Seller Central account if you haven't already, because you will need to create the listing in order to create the shipment inside of Amazon before it can actually get sent to you. So you do need to have your listing created before the product has been finished manufacturing or before it can actually get sent out. So usually that's a good window to create your listing. Cassandra says, do I have to check if a product is patented? I'm not a patent or trademark expert by any means, but it is definitely a good idea when you're doing product research to check for patents and trademarks, etc. In the $1 million case study, we have an episode, I think it's like episode 4, maybe 5, that is all about some easy ways and then sort of the more expensive ways to do these checks. There are some free things that you can do that can give you a little bit of an idea, but then the best thing to do to be absolutely sure is to get professional advice to check out whether something is patented or not. You certainly don't want to sell a product that's patented. Your listing will probably get suspended and it'll just, you'll have to go back to the drawing board. So that is definitely a step in the product research process. All right, one more question before we wrap it up today. Let's see. Okay. Hi Lenny, Karen here. I'm a new seller. I would like to know, what is an estimate timeline from the moment you choose your product to sell it on Amazon? And great information presented today. Thank you. All right. Yeah, so the timeline will vary depending on the products, of course. But I would say, just a very rough rule of thumb, 3 to 4 months between, well, actually, I was thinking more so from the moment you start doing product research, but from the moment you choose your product, it might be, well, let's see, an estimate timeline from the moment you choose your product to selling it on Amazon. If you've gone through product research, you've found your product, you found your supplier, and you place an order, it could be 6 to 8 weeks. Depending on the product, we'll say it's going to be roughly 30 to 40 days to make it. And then if you air ship it, it's small, lightweight, you maybe just want to get it in real quick. You'll air ship it, which could be maybe, let's say, 7 days. Or if you use ocean shipping, which is a lot cheaper, but might take 30 to 40 days, then of course that's another 30 to 40 days. So roughly speaking, a couple of months. But yeah, generally I would say maybe about 3 months from the moment you decide to start looking for a product to the moment that you're selling it on Amazon. That's roughly the window. I'd also recommend checking out $1 Million Case Study episode number 14 here on the YouTube channel. In that one, I recap the story of launching the washable pee pads, and in that I kind of break down some of the key dates from how much time we spent looking for product ideas to how long it was to get it made and get it shipped into Amazon and that sort of thing. Just to give you one example of a product and the timeline that it took. Okay, everyone, we're gonna wrap it up today because it's the end of day 1, but thank you so much for joining today. I really appreciate it. I hope you've got some value. If you have, let me know by hitting the thumbs up down below, and I hope to see you all for day 2 tomorrow. Thanks so much, guys.
All right, thank you all for submitting your questions. If you got any value out of the session, please go ahead and like this video and give it a big thumbs up down below. Make sure you join us again tomorrow for day 2 of JungleCon, where we'll cover more advanced selling topics, including advertising, business structure, and how to scale your business to over $1 million in sales. Thanks again for joining us for Jungle Scout's first ever seller conference. We hope you got a ton of value out of it, and we look forward to seeing you back here again tomorrow. Take care.